So today, coming up now, we're going to hear from Jenny Rowan, HPP class of 2017, for her presentation about tourism, land use, and preservation planning for Johns Pass Village. Since graduating, Jenny has worked for the city of Alexandria, Virginia in the Historic Preservation Department and in the Philippines, designing public open spaces. Jenny currently works for the city of Madeira Beach, Florida as the senior planner and floodplain manager. She has worked for Madeira Beach for a little over 2 years, and she lives in Tampa in a 1920s bungalow with her husband and 2 dogs. Her presentation today will discuss the city of Madeira Beach, which is on a barrier island in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. The main economy for the city is tourism, and Johns Pass Village sits at the edge of the barrier island on a pass and is the tourist hub of the city. This area was developed with hotels and cottages, fishing and water services, and eclectic tourist shops and seafood restaurants. The underlying land use and zoning is inconsistent with the current development, and the city is in the process of creating a unique land use activity center to capture the built environment, preserve the nautical feel of the area, and plan for future development. So Jenny's presentation was pre-recorded, so I'm gonna share that here with you all, hit play on that, and then Jenny will jump in after to answer questions with us. And I'm just gonna push play here and see if we can hear the sound.
Hello, my name is Jenny Rowan. I'm the senior planner for the city of Madeira Beach, Florida. I'm an alum of the HPP program from Cornell and graduated in 2018. Today I'll be talking to you about Johns Pass Village Activity Center. Madeira Beach is located in the Tampa Bay area. We are on one of the barrier islands in Pinellas County. Our main industry is tourism. In 2021, Pinellas County received 14.9 million visitors. Madeira Beach was the second most popular community visited by the beachgoer, family traveler, and affluent visitor, second to Clearwater Beach. Madeira Beach was the second most visited for the millennial visitor. This was second to St. Petersburg, and second to Clearwater Beach for the Gen X visitor. Madeira Beach is popular for tourism because of its long stretches of clean beaches and commercial tourist areas such as Johns Pass Village. Johns Pass Village is at the southern tip of the barrier island along a pass and is currently one of the last places in the county with a working waterfront. The village is nautical in character and dates back to some of the earliest developments on the island. In 2021, TripAdvisor awarded Madeira Beach as the number 9 top beach in the United States. The first homestead in Madeira Beach was in 1912. It was near the Johns Pass area and overlooked the pass. Soon after, Noel Mitchell, also known as the Sandman, purchased 148 acres and had huge plans to turn this homestead into a tourist destination. Mitchell built Mitchell Beach's Hotel in 1914 and subdivided the land into small 40-foot wide lots. He peppered the newspapers with advertisements showcasing Mitchell's Pass as a prime fishing destination and ran boats from inland to the island with seafood shore dinners included. Mitchell abandoned his beach development plans after the end of World War I and sold this area to David Welch, who ran yachting excursions to and from other island properties in the county. The original Johns Pass Bridge opened in 1927, resulting in the establishment of a commercial fishing industry on both sides of the pass. By the mid-1930s, auto traffic could travel up and down all the barrier islands of the county. Many hotels, restaurants, and small businesses catered to recreational fishing opened in Johns Pass. Johns Pass continued to be promoted as a destination for holiday fishing, with postcards and advertisements featuring men fishing from Johns Pass Bridge. Throughout the 30s and 50s, Madeira Beach was divided in subdivisions, and the Fill Islands were approved and developing. By 1947, Madeira Beach was incorporated as a city. The area continued to develop during the 50s and 60s as a fishing and holiday destination, with both sides of the pass featuring bait shops, curio shops, restaurants, vacation rental cottages, and charter boat excursions. In 1971, a new span bridge was constructed across the pass, which moved access closer to the Gulf and away from the village. This allowed the city to reclaim Village Boulevard as a local business street, spared from the increase of automobile traffic. This reconstruction of Village Boulevard narrowed the street to local street standards and allowed widened sidewalks and parking. In 1972, merchants were allowed to build along the right-of-way and expand balconies and upper walkways. This helped create a Main Street traditional development pattern. Throughout the 70s and 80s, many former fishing and holiday cottages in Johns Pass were converted to commercial use or demolished for parking. By the 80s, a boardwalk along the pass ran along the old bridge all the way to the new span bridge. Recreational boating replaced much of the industrial fishing fleet, and this trend is still happening in the city, with only a few commercial fishing areas in the city. In the early 1980s, the city undertook major amendments to the local land development code, adopting setbacks and other site regulations more typical of suburban locations. These regulations rendered many of the existing buildings non-conforming. This is especially true within Johns Pass Village. In 1989, the city adopted its first comprehensive plan. Here in Pinellas County, we have 3 different maps and plans we adhere to: the countywide rules, strategies, and plan maps, the city's comprehensive plan and future land use map, and the city's land development regulations, also known as the zoning map and code of ordinances. In 1992, the county's rules and countywide plan map were amended to require local government's future land use to be consistent with designations defined by the county. The intensity of Johns Pass Village and Madeira Beach's comprehensive plan changed from a floor area ratio of 0.9 in 1993, down to 0.7 in 2006, and then up to a 1.2 in 2008. Though the plan has changed and been updated since 2008, the floor area ratio of Johns Pass Village has not changed from that 1.2. The 1.2 floor area ratio was to be applied for tourist accommodations, while retail areas in the countywide plan allows for a 0.55 floor area ratio. The city was not notified of this inconsistency, but rather recently found the discrepancy while reviewing the countywide rules and maps. A floor area ratio of 0.55 makes most of Johns Pass Village area non-conforming. Therefore, the city is undertaking a land use change to accommodate the unique character of this area with a more appropriate land use category of an activity center. An activity center land use allows for a more intense development like a main street area and is appropriate for tourist destinations. The land use highlighted in yellow are the current land uses within the proposed activity center area, and the land use highlighted in green is the proposed activity center land use and allowed density and intensity. The city is allowed to be more restrictive than at the local level, allowing for lower densities and intensities than what the county allows. This is a visualization of floor area ratio. The current land uses with the county allows for a floor area ratio of 0.55. That's similar to that FAR 0.5 in the lower left corner of the screen. The top visualization shows what the building would look like on half of the land, and below shows if the building had no setbacks and took up the entire parcel of land. The setbacks are somewhere between these two examples, and the local codes also have height restrictions, which are not shown in these slides. Here's an example of that 0.55 floor area ratio. As you can see, half of the lot is taken up by parking or landscape, and the other half is a building that is 1 story high. Here is another example of a floor area ratio of 0.55. As you can see, this looks very different than the Johns Pass Village area, which has a Main Street feel. The 0.55 floor area ratio has large gaps between buildings and huge parking areas. The city held 2 public meetings, 1 workshop, and conducted surveys to receive public input for potential options of the future land use designation. Several options were considered, and based on this input, an activity center plan of the community level was decided for Johns Pass Village with 6 different character districts. Here's the overall area of the proposed activity center. A community center activity center allows for a maximum of 90 residential units per acre, 150 temporary lodging units per acre, and a floor area ratio of up to 3. The city is proposing 6 distinctive character districts that would further limit the intensity and density of each area to be more cohesive with current development patterns. We are allowed to be more restrictive than what the county allows. Now, we will go through each character district, and just keep in mind that the entire city is within the floodplain, so no residential or temporary lodging units are allowed on the ground floor. This would have to be on the 2nd or 3rd floors. And on the ground floor, only flood-proof commercial is allowed. Floodproofing is very expensive for every business, so not everybody will do it. And since most buildings are built prior to the flood maps, most of the buildings that are currently there are not built to current floodplain standards. So if a storm were to wipe out the entire area, all of the new construction would have to meet the floodplain standards. The traditional village character district encompasses Village Boulevard, which is one of the main roads in the village. Buildings have a Main Street quality with a large arcade and wide tree-lined sidewalks. The proposed uses are retail and services, restaurant, office, temporary and residential units. The proposed floor area ratio is 3. Proposed residential units per acre is 25, and temporary lodging units of 70 units per acre. Most of these lots in the traditional village are quite small and are of that traditional 40 feet by 100 feet. Commercial Core District has many newer buildings that are larger in scale. The proposed uses are retail and services, restaurant, office, temporary lodging, and residential units. The proposed floor area ratio is 3. The proposed residential units per acre is 15, with temporary lodging units of 100 units per acre. The Boardwalk Character District is an icon of Johns Pass Village. Many of these buildings have fishing and boating charters and rentals on the ground level, with the 2nd level on the boardwalk is lined with tourist shops and restaurants that overlook the pass. The boardwalk is owned and maintained by the city. The proposed uses are retail and services, restaurant, commercial, and recreational fishing. Proposed floor area ratio is 1.5, with 0 residential and temporary lodging units per acre. The low-intensity mixed-use district originally housed many of the beach cottages, some which exist and are still running as nightly rentals. Many of the cottages were demolished and replaced with single-family homes, some which are rented out nightly. This area is on the bay, and the front of the buildings face the back of the traditional village district, which has commercial parking and dumpsters. The proposed uses are retail and services, restaurant, office, temporary lodging, and residential units. The commercial use of each building can be up to 20% maximum. This means on the ground floor, you could have a restaurant or retail and services, while the second or third floors would have temporary lodging and residential units. The proposed floor area ratio is 1.5. The proposed residential units per acre of 18 and temporary lodging units per acre of 60. The Johns Pass Resort District is across the road from the village and commercial area. Many of these buildings are hotels and condos that cater to beachgoers. We are seeing an increase of nightly rentals in the condos along the beach throughout the entire city. This has led to an increase in tourism and decrease in permanent residents. Proposed uses are retail and services, restaurant, office, temporary lodging, and residential units. Similar to the low-intensity mixed use, commercial can use up to 20% of the building. The proposed floor area ratio is 2, with the residential units per acre of 80 and 80 temporary lodging units per acre. The transitional district is a step down from the tourist development into the current land use density and intensity with the floor area ratio of 1.2 on the northern side of this area. This area consists of commercial uses, residential units, and some hotels. So the proposed use, the retail and services, restaurant, office, temporary lodging, and residential units. The floor area ratio 1.5, which would step down to 1.2, and the proposed residential units per acre is 30, with the proposed temporary lodging units per acre of 60. Now here you can see the tables of each character districts, the residential units per acre, temporary lodging units per acre, the floor area ratio, and the acreage of each district, along with the percentage of each total area. The table on the right compares the average Johns Pass Village Activity Center standard with the countywide community center standard. So as you can tell, our standards are quite lower than what the county would allow. Pinellas County has a beach trolley that is extremely popular for tourists and residents. This beach trolley is frequented every 15 minutes, is free to everyone, and runs up and down all the barrier islands. The county has also been talking about a water taxi that would begin in downtown St. Pete, go along all the barrier islands, and end in Clearwater. The county has talked about putting a stop, 1 or 2 stops in Madeira Beach, one definitely being in Johns Pass Village. This just shows that Johns Pass Village is very much a tourist destination for the county. The city has also talked to Florida Department of Transportation about putting an additional traffic light in the area of Johns Pass Activity Center. This would just help with pedestrian crossing and traffic. We've also discussed increasing pedestrian safety and circulation. This would be through crosswalks, wayfinding signage, and widening sidewalks. Once we are finished with our report and the application, this process will have to go through Planning Commission, then City Commission, and if it's approved at the City Commission, then it'll go through the county, and from the county up to the state, and back to the local City Commission for final approval. For the first step is to amend the city's comprehensive plan to create the activity center category. Second step is to adopt the activity center special area plan and amend the future land use map in the comprehensive plan. The third step is to amend the countywide plan to establish an activity center on the countywide plan map and the land use strategy map. And the fourth and final step is to amend the city's land development code to establish an activity center overlay zoning district and administer the implement the activity center plan. In conclusion, Madeira Beach is the vital tourist destination for Pinellas County and the Tampa Bay region. An activity center designation would better reflect the existing use and provides for future development in Johns Pass Village. An activity center would allow flexibility with more strategic planning and land development. And the activity center would be implemented by an overlay zoning district with specific design standards to protect and enhance existing character. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jenny, for that
Thank you.
presentation. Let's see, I think she is, yeah,
Can you
she's
hear
here.
me?
Yes,
I'm
we can hear you perfectly. Okay, great.
Perfect.
So Jenny is here with us now, and she will, we can open it up for questions, discussion, things like that.
Any questions?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Not so much a question, but just a comment. Great presentation. My family lives down in the Fort Myers area, and I'm not super familiar with Tampa, but now I definitely want to go check out Madeira Beach next time I'm down there. So
Yes, please come up here and let me know when you're here. I'll give you a tour.
for sure. Thanks.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Just curious, how many year-round residents does Madeira Beach have, and how can it be classified as a city?
It was classified in 1947. It's a really small municipality. We're about 2 or 3 miles long. It's really tiny. There's cities that are north of us that are even smaller. But we're one of the smaller commercial and tourist barrier island cities in Pinellas County. We have about 4,000, a little over 4,000 residents, which has gone down. Our estimated was supposed to be 4,400, but with the last census, it was a little over 4,000. So we've been seeing that reduction, but we've been seeing more people renting out their condos on the beach, using it almost like a hotel. So we have a lot of condos, not as many hotels, but we're definitely seeing that increase of nightly rentals there.
Thank you.
I had a question actually about the water taxi. If you have seen that, is that around anywhere else in?
We have one in Tampa, but it's not run through the MPO or the public transit. It's more of a private entity that does that, and it's a small area. This would be on a larger scale, so this would probably start up in a few years. It's just in the beginning stages of discussing where we have the stops and is it feasible to have. So I haven't been on a lot of those discussions, but I think they've only had 1 or 2 meetings, so it's really early in the stages.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Melanie.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for a really great presentation. Just building off of the question about the population, can you talk a little bit more about the demographic change you all are experiencing with the population loss or changes in the recent years?
We're just having an increase in tourism. So a lot of our other commercial barrier islands have seen that as well, where it's a decrease in residents and then an increase in tourism and an increase in those nightly rentals. So I'm not sure how that'll affect us in the future, but it's definitely something that's on our minds when we're actually in the process of also updating our comprehensive plan. So that is going into our research and what we will figure out in the future. But we're having more of a focus on tourism now, as it seems. Yes, Michael?
Good job. In the discussion in university circles, not only in planning and preservation, but also in real estate, the whole question of Airbnb or temporary housing has become a flashpoint in any number of ways. I know from the reading I've done in other parts of Florida that pool cleaners and what else, there's an entire sub-industry for all of this. But have you noticed any changes in your particular instance of the manner in which enforcement of the so-called temporary housing has changed? Is there any discussion about that?
We've been having a lot of difficulties on enforcing Airbnbs and people renting out their homes. They're not allowed in. If you look at a map of our city, there's these little finger islands, and all of those are 100% residential, single family homes, some duplexes. There's a few up to like fourplexes, but in those areas, you're not allowed to do the nightly rentals. The rentals are, I believe, like 6 months is the minimum, and some places 3 months. But the areas that have condos and on the beach, those you can do a nightly rental. So we're having issues enforcing in those residential areas that are not supposed to have the Airbnb and nightly rentals. We get them all the time, and we're we're constantly looking at Airbnb and VRBO and having our people come out and write tickets.
And this goes into city court?
Yes, it'll go to the special magistrate, which we hold at City Hall. If they do not correct it or take it off, they have to pay a fine, and then if it's still on there, just like any enforcement, they'll have to go to the special magistrate.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions popping up at the moment. So I think what we'll do is we can, if it's okay with, looks like Sean's on the call here, we can take a eight-minute break and come back at 1:40 and get started a little early on Sean's presentation, if that seems okay. Maybe not. Okay, we'll plan on that. Come back at 1:40 and we'll go from there. Thanks, everybody.